Tonight, as we begin our little journey, I picked this psalm and I want to tell you a little bit about what most experts tell us. What most experts tell us is the person who wrote it. His name is David. I don't know how much you know about David, but it's important that you know a couple of things. And this psalm is going to take on a way different meaning. David was chosen as a young man, and I mean young man, to be the king of Israel. Most of us might remember that wonderful story about how David, this little boy, goes and faces the giant Goliath. He goes there, and he's there at an invitation from King Saul. And the first thing they do, he says, "I'll go fight him." Can't you see a little boy doing this? Can't you see a little boy? I'll take care of it. I can do that. Knew no fear. So they put armor on him. I picture this in my mind often, because think about this little boy, and then think about them putting on the shield and the breastplate and the helmet, and he couldn't move. It weighed so much he couldn't move. And so finally he just took it off. He says, "That's okay. That's okay." Well, took his little slingshot and he slew the giant Goliath. And then as the years went on, he finally did become the king of Israel. And he was a good king. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was a good king. He had only the best interest of the people at heart, and he was a good ruler and a good general. He took good care of the people until one day. If you don't know the story, I will tell you slowly because it's going to get you. Okay. One day he had sent his armies out to war, and he stayed behind, and he was out on his porch. I use our language, not his. He was out on his porch, and he had a nice high place, the castle, the place he lived in. And he looked out from his porch, and what does he see? He sees a woman bathing on her porch. Now this only goes to show you, if you think you have a place where you're safe, you have privacy fence all around, look up for the higher view, and you might find out you're not as private as you thought you were. So he looks over at this woman, and something happens to this good young man. Something happens to this man chosen by God to lead the people. He sees something, he wants it, and he makes it happen. So he begins seeing her. Bathsheba was her name. And they start having an affair because her husband's out. He's a soldier, so he's out with the army. And everything was kind of all right. They were managing to pretty well keep it a secret from those who they wanted to keep it a secret from, including her husband. But then she got pregnant. So David goes, this is not going to work because he's out there in the field. He's out there with the army. She gets pregnant. They're going to be looking for somebody. And he didn't want them to find him, quite frankly. So he tries desperately to get her husband to come back, and he does. And then he tries desperately to get her husband to go and sleep with her. But he was a good soldier. He was a good commander. And he would not leave his troops. And he would not dare to go to the comfort of his home and his wife because his soldiers didn't have that same privilege. So bottom line is he wouldn't go there. So bottom line is David had to do something about it. So David, this good man, now I'm telling you, this was a good man. But then he sent her husband, Uzziah, out, and he told the general, put him in the front of the line. Put him out. Oh, look. See, someone hadn't heard this story before. She is upset now, aren't you? You're upset now. So, it's good in the movie too, by the way. So, sends Uzziah out, front lines. Okay? And what happens? Exactly what David wanted to happen. He was killed. Okay. So that's the story that's behind, many scholars believe, this psalm. David is coming to God and saying, I messed up. I know I did. I did what I shouldn't have been doing. I'm so far from you. I've never been this far from you before. And please, please, change me. Please forgive me. Please once again put your Spirit in me. And I love what David says in the Message translation. I particularly like how it ends up, because David says, enter me then, conceive a new life, where what you're after is truth from the inside out. Truth from the inside out. And so, as we begin our Lenten journey, I'll give you a preview. You'll have a preview, but nobody else in church will have it on Sunday. So you will know where I'm going before I even get there on Sunday when I'm preaching. So here's what we're going to do over the next few Sundays, the Sundays of Lent. We're going to do some self-examination. We're going to try to get in touch with the truth of who we are, with the truth of what we do and why we do it. Now we look back to David and we can tell ourselves, she must have been really pretty for him to give up everything. Because he really did. He put God aside. He knew he wasn't supposed to do that, and he did it anyway. And then to cover up a wrong, he did an even greater wrong. He violated one of God's commandments. As surely as if he had stabbed Uzziah himself, he sent Uzziah to die. And he knew it. And so I often believe that we need to take some moments, and I hope over the next few weeks we're going to be looking at different parts of our lives, trying to examine honestly where we are, looking at what we do, and then trying to decide why we do it. Whenever I think about that, I always think about a story, and I have to share the story. Okay? I probably shared it before because I think it's the best example I ever heard of why we do what we do. So it was getting ready to be Christmas dinner. And every Christmas, this big family had a big ham. Huge ham. So the mother at that time was there, and grandmother was there, grandfather was there. It was huge, huge gathering. So just before she was putting the ham in the oven, she went, got the big knife, and cut off the end of it. And somebody asked, well, why are you cutting off the end and putting it over to the side and cooking it separate? And she said, well, I don't know. She said, that's how Mother taught me to do it. So grandmother was there. So they bring her into the kitchen, and the daughter says, well, Mom, I just cut off the end like you taught me to, and they're asking me why, so I thought I'd ask you since you're here. She said, what? You're cutting off? Why are you cutting off the end? And she said, well, that's the way you taught me to do it. She said, that's because our oven was too little. I mean, so why do we do some of the things we do? We carry on traditions. We don't know where they came from. We do things we don't understand why. And it's time for us, I believe, to question some of that. To look at what we're doing and to think about it, to be honest with ourselves about where that came from and why we do it. And then, if it is necessary, I want this Lenten time that we have together until Easter to be a time when we look and we look at what we do, we're honest with ourselves, and if we need to change, we might be willing to do it. If we need to change, I am making no judgment. I'm not the one doing any of this. I want each of us separately to look at ourselves. You don't even have to discuss it with anybody else. I'm not saying you have to keep it a secret, but you don't have to discuss it with anybody. This is between you and God. You need to get to the truth in your life, and we all need to be doing this, not just during Lent, but this is good practice. Nice short time, we can just do this and kind of be done with it. To look at ourselves honestly and to decide who we want to be. I think often about the young people today. And many of you might know that we have a young woman who's a part of our church, actually, She's the granddaughter of Karen and Kathy. She had 2 friends within a very short time commit suicide. They hung themselves. And I was devastated by it. I actually was devastated by it. And of course, she's still to this day very upset. She still hasn't come to any kind of grips with it. But then to kind of bring it more home for me, I got a phone call on my cell phone. Some of you know, lots of people have that number. The woman that called me was the mother of a woman that I did a wedding for last March. She and her wife got married on the beach. It was the most beautiful day. I couldn't get over it. And both of their moms and one of their grandmothers were there for the wedding. It's just such a blessing for me when I see family coming to support people. But the mom that called me, she said, he told me that her daughter's wife had committed suicide, had hung herself. A young woman in the military with a good career. They were very happy together. The one whose mom called, she had been accepted at Florida State University, and she was in school. And they got to see each other every weekend. They made sure they made time for each other. And she got the call from NCIS that her wife had been found dead. With a note. Without a note. But then she checked her phone and she got a text message. She didn't have her phone on, she was in class. And when she turned the phone on, it said, "I love you, I'm sorry." So it just hit me like we need to be able to look at things in our lives. We need to change what we need to change. And if we do need to talk about stuff, we need to be willing to do it. When 3 young women in my realm of knowing commit suicide, I can't help but wonder what we're doing wrong. What we're doing wrong. Hear me. Not what they did wrong, but what we're doing wrong. What this world is doing wrong when we can't give our young people hope. And what a great story to share with them. I could share that story with them about David. I say, you think you messed up? Let me tell you. Let me tell you about a man chosen by God who did the most terrible things and yet was willing to say, God, just forgive me. So this is going to be a time when we'll look at things and maybe we'll have to do a little bit of that too. Saying, God, I had no idea I'd been doing this. I had no idea I had not been doing this. Forgive me. So I want us to do some changing during this Lenten time. I want us to come out of these 40 days of Lent, beginning tonight. I want us to come out of it changed, transformed, even if it's just the most small way. So over the next 4 weeks, you'll hear me each Sunday highlight something for us to look at. Highlight some things you need to be thinking about as you're looking at that in yourself. And I won't be telling you how to change. I'm giving you the information. You need to make the changes. Okay? So I thank you for being here tonight as we begin our Lenten journey together. Please pray with me. God, we come to you. We come to you and we say thank you. We say thank you for this opportunity to once again make our journey, to Easter. And during this time, God, we ask you to be with us, to help us really look at ourselves and our lives honestly, and then to be the people you call us to be. Amen.